Hello, how are you? Are you well? What you been up to? It's nearly the weekend and I love Fridays. Yeah, I love Fridays. Fridays are the best day of the week. The weather at the moment has been absolutely shocking, and even though we are in February, it feels like we should be in April at the moment because the like April showers when it's not even April. Oh, yeah. The weather's been not very nice, so it's been great. The beginning of the week though was good, and I went over the woods with the dogs, and it was lovely. It was so nice and spring-like, and I took my coat off, and it's just like, wow, look at me in my t-shirt. Yeah, now cold, wet. 40-mile-an-hour winds yesterday, which was delightful. Not because over the back of where my driveway is, where my car is, there's this big weeping willow tree, and when in autumn, when they lose their leaves, my car is completely covered in that lovely tree's leaves. Okay, every year. So my husband comes in yesterday and he says, "Have you seen your car today?" Now, bearing in mind, I didn't go out yesterday because it was 40-mile-an-hour winds and it was really shockingly chucking it down with rain. So I'd gone, "Why?" And he said, "Because for some reason, it is completely covered in leaves." Now, most of the trees haven't got leaves at the moment, so I can't understand how this has happened. The poor tree has just got all his leaves back and he's like loving life, have his leaves on, and all of a sudden the wind goes, "No, you don't want them," and throws them all over my car. So my car is now sporting lots and lots of leaves, which is nice. Anyway, yeah, so there's that. What else can I say? The weather has been shocking, and although there's lots of spring flowers around, and we've got daffs in our garden, and we've got snowdrops, and some pretty little crocuses, and this and the other, great. But the weather, horrible at the minute. So come on, please, spring, please come back, sunshine. We miss you. It's supposed to be sunny today. Well, I say today. When you're watching this video is Friday, so Friday it's supposed to be sunny. So this is confusing for me because I'm recording this video on Thursday when it's chucking it down with rain outside. So yeah, anyway, I'll shut up about the fucking weather because the weather doesn't matter, because at the end of the day I am not here to tell you the weather. Well, I've just sat and spent a whole 10 minutes telling you the weather. No, I haven't really, but still. God's sake, I do waffle, don't I? Flipping hell. How my husband has stayed with me for 24 years, I will never, ever know. He's such a brave man. Anyway, video. Let's talk about that instead, because that's more interesting and what you're here for. So, this video I'm making because the things I'm going to talk about are kind of they could be considered as urban legends. And now I'm not sure if they are urban legends. I'm not sure if I should class them as that really or not. I don't know. But even if they are, I enjoyed telling them. And the reason I've enjoyed telling them is because I do actually like urban legends anyway. So, whatever. I do feel like a lot of the stories and things that I've talked about in this, obviously some you might have heard of before and stuff, and all of that. Anyway, I just find them interesting and a little bit spooky, and that's what we're here for, right? So, I'll just shut the hell up and I will just roll the damn video. Let's do it. These days, we rarely see hitchhikers. Now, occasionally you might spot someone at the side of the road with their thumb out, hoping for a ride somewhere, but not very often. Which probably might be a good thing, really, as sometimes you might get more than you bargained for. So, here's a couple of stories that might put you off stopping next time you pass someone. A young man was driving home one night when he saw a young woman standing at the side of the road looking cold. So he pulled over to her, opened his door to let her in. She looked so cold that he offered her his white jumper to wear to warm her up. She told him her car had swerved off the road and she needed to get to her parents' house. He then noticed her hands and face were covered in scratches. They drove for a few miles, and when they reached the house at the end of a lane, it was all lit up in the darkness. "This is the place," she told him as she got out of the car, thanking him. He drove off and thought nothing of it. A few days later, he remembered that he gave her his jumper, so he retraced his journey to the house in the lane. He stopped, got out, knocked on the door, and he was greeted by an elderly couple who invited him in. Now there on the shelf was a photo of the girl that he dropped off a few days earlier. When he explained to the couple that he'd lent her his jumper and just came to retrieve it, he was astonished to find out that their 19-year-old daughter had been killed 40 years ago in a car accident on her way home one evening. The young man could not believe that his passenger was not alive, as she seemed as solid as you or I, and she was very real. As he drove slowly past a nearby cemetery, something flapping in the wind caught his eye, so he stopped and he got out to investigate. As he approached the object, he was stunned to realise that it was his white jumper, the one that he'd given to his cold passenger. It was draped over the headstone of a 19-year-old local girl who tragically died 40 years earlier. Now, if that's not enough to put the willies up here, then here is another. Years ago, a young tradesman from Bedfordshire in England was driving home from a pub darts match. It was 12th of October 1979. 26-year-old carpet fitter Roy Fulton from Dunstable thought he'd do a good deed, and he picked up a stranded hitchhiker. He was driving from Leighton Buzzard when he stopped to give a lift to a young man standing in an isolated stretch of the road on the outskirts of Stanbridge. The young man walked along the road towards the van. He was dressed casually in dark trousers and a jumper with a white collared shirt. Nothing seemed unusual. The man opened the passenger door, climbed in, and when Roy asked where he needed to go, the boy's response was to point ahead down towards the misty road. Roy thought nothing of it and pulled away. The journey continued in silence for some minutes until Roy decided to offer the boy a cigarette. This was the point when it turned from something ordinary to something very out of the ordinary. I leant forward and picked up the pack of cigarettes, turned to offer the lad one, but there was no man or boy sat there, he said. Stunned, Roy stopped the van, turned on the interior light and looked in the back even, thinking that he might have climbed back there. But there was nothing or nobody. Roy was alone in the van. Now, terrified, he drove straight to his local pub in a panic. Ashen-faced and shaking, he blurted out what had happened to the landlord, Bill Stone, and to some regulars. Now, two things haunted him about this experience. The eerie, pale-faced passenger apparently was part of an earlier traffic accident that had not been reported, and secondly, the sad, lonely, silent man would somehow follow him home. Roy Fulton was later interviewed by writer and researcher Michael Goss, and in 1985 he took part in the documentary series on TV, Arthur C. Clarke's World of Strange Powers. Now, on both occasions when he told the story, it never changed one bit. That one night in October 1979, he took a ghost for a free ride. Now, if spooky stories are your thing, which they clearly are or you wouldn't be here, right? Here's some things that you may or may not have heard of before. Philadelphia's Eastern State Penitentiary was home to some of the country's most notorious criminals, and 150 years ago, the punishments themselves were enough to give you chills. Not only was it one of the first prisons to institute solitary confinement, which led to insanity, but prisoners were also left wet in the cold until ice formed on their bodies, or they were given an iron gag that made their tongues bleed. In the 1990s, a locksmith was helping restore a cell when he says a negative energy overcame him and left him temporarily paralysed before he saw visions of faces appearing on the walls. Since then, countless other true ghost stories have emerged from visitors who have reported seeing shadowy figures or hearing eerie giggles, whispers and wails. Now, moving on to the next one. This one is called the Axe Murder House. Some of you might know it, some of you may not. So here we are. The Axe Murder House in Iowa is a well-known tourist attraction for ghost hunters and horror lovers alike. The site of a gruesome unsolved murder in 1912, in which 6 children and 2 adults had their skulls completely crushed by an axe of an unknown perpetrator. The house was purchased in 1994. It was restored to its 1912 condition and converted into a tourist destination. Now, it costs $428 a night to stay at the old haunted home, where visitors are always reporting strange phenomena and paranormal experiences, such as visions of the man with an axe roaming the halls or the faint screams of children. But in November of 2014, the haunting took a darker turn. Robert Stephen Lorison Jr., 37, of Wisconsin, was on a regular recreational paranormal visit with his friends when the true horror struck. His companions found him stabbed in the chest, an apparently self-inflicted wound. They called 911 and he was brought to a nearby hospital before being helicoptered to Creighton University Medical Center in Omaha. The Montgomery County Sheriff's Office said that he suffered the self-inflicted injury around 2:45 a.m, which is about the same time as the 1912 axe murders in the house began. Larson recovered from his injuries, but he's never spoken publicly about what happened that day. For Martha Lynn, the owner of the home, the incident was very upsetting. She said, "It's publicity, but it's not exactly the kind of publicity that you desire to have. I don't want people thinking that when they come to the Axe Murder House, something's going to happen that's going to make them do something like that." The house remains open for tourist visits and overnight stays, still today. Now, my take on this particular story is I can't tell you why he did that. I mean, it could have been something like a overwhelming bad energy made him do it. Who knows? Because he has never spoken about it publicly, nobody knows what exactly occurred to him, causing him to do that. But what actually sort of made me sort of laugh in a way is the statement by the lady who owns the house now. The way she was saying about it's not publicity that you desire to have, because you know she doesn't want people thinking that when they come to the Axe Murder House something's going to happen. I mean, it's called the Axe Murder House. It's not a very it's not the Waltons, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's not like Little House on the Prairie. This is the Axe Murder House, so of course publicity like that is going to be good for her business, surely. I mean, poor lad, shouldn't have happened. I mean, in 1912, the whole thing with the 6 children and the 2 adults, that shouldn't have blooming happened, should it? But it did. So for her to take the home on and restore it to its former glory, and then sort of like, you know, open it for tourists and overnight stays, that is your publicly, you know, that's publicity, that you want. It's your business. So that sort of made me laugh a bit when she said, you know, it's not sort of, I don't want people thinking that when they come to the Axe Murder House that something's going to happen. I mean, flipping out. Obviously, you don't want people to think that, you know, when you go there, you're going to flipping chop yourself in the chest with an axe or whatever. But still, it did make me laugh. Anyway, you know, that's my take on it. Anyway, I don't know what you think. Let me know in the comments, because that would be quite interesting to know what you think about that. Anyway, moving on. Next one is Utah murder suicide. So again, in America. In September of 2014, a Utah teen returned to his home to find his parents and 3 siblings dead. In a notebook, a to-do list had been scribbled on the pages. The list looked as if the parents were ready and to go on a vacation. Items such as feed the pets and find someone to watch after the house were written. The Salt Lake Tribune reported it appeared to be murder-suicide, but there was no suicide note, no prior indication that they would do this, and no explanation. Police could not figure out why 2 parents would kill themselves and 3 of their 4 children. For a year, no one knew exactly what happened to the family, or what would drive the parents to do something so unthinkable. In January, police released more chilling details in the case. According to accounts from the family members and an investigation by police, the parents were driven by a belief that the apocalypse was coming and an obsession with a convicted killer. The Washington Post reported, friends and family told police that the parents were worried about evil in the world and wanted to escape a pending apocalypse. But most assumed that they just wanted to move somewhere off the grid. Investigators also found letters written by Christy Strack to one of the state's most infamous convicted killers, Dan Lafferty, who was convicted in the 1984 fatal stabbing of his sister-in-law and her 1-year-old daughter. According to trial testimony, he killed the victims at the order of his brother, Ron Lafferty, who claimed to have had a revelation from God. The story became a book called Under the Banner of Heaven. Police said Christy Strack became friends with Dan Lafferty, and she and her husband even visited him in prison. Now then, obviously this story is not an urban legend. It is a true story because there's convicted killers and stuff as well. And I think, no matter what you say about it, they had to be a bit mad. And there's no nice way to say that, but they had to be a bit mad. Because, they were obsessed with a convicted killer, especially the mother by the sounds of it. And she became friends with this convicted killer, who also was, a bit mad because him and his brother, by the sounds of it, he killed the victims of, who his brother told him to kill them because he claimed he had a revelation from God. Now, I am not a religious person. I don't believe in God, I don't believe in heaven, I don't believe in hell. I've got nothing against people that do, but if you're having a revelation from God and you are telling someone to kill your wife and daughter who's 1 year old, I'm sorry, but that doesn't ring true to me, because surely God would be a nice person not wanting to kill people. I don't know, I just don't get that about God. I always think, if I think of God, it's got to be someone that's kind and nice and loving, or so we're led to believe. So again, that tells me that these people are a bit mad. I think that about every single murderer though, people that are murderers, they've got to be a bit touched, in the head, because otherwise why would you kill someone? How would you? I could go on like this forever, but I might actually do a video of murderers and convicted killers and things, because I find the whole thing rather fascinating in the most gruesome way. But this is what my channel's all about, sort of spooky, scary stuff, and that's quite scary in itself. So yeah, I think I'm going to do a video on some convicted murderers and stuff like that. Anyway, thank you for coming along, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again on the next one. So that's that then. There's the video. That is the video of the week. I hope you enjoyed it. Did ya? Let me know in the comments, because it's always nice to know what you think. Yeah, I'll take them out now. I don't know. I find a lot of the stories and things, they could be true. I mean, who am I to say? Who am I to say if they are or they're not? I'm not, am I? So yeah. But I enjoyed them anyway, because I like things like that. So I hope you enjoyed them too, and I hope it didn't bore you stupid. Because I kind of I do have this tendency to bore people stupid with stuff. Just ask my poor husband. Poor man. He gets bored stupid of my stuff all the time, but he married me. Anyway, what you up to the weekend? You busy? You doing anything? You got plans? I've got some plans, I think. Things I'm not going to talk about here. No, not them sort. Well, not them sort of plans. No, my family watches these videos, so I can't go into that. Can't turn that side of me. Turn that switch. No. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of me being stupid. And have yourself a great weekend. Thank you for watching, as usual. I hope you all keep smiling and do your thing. And I will see you on the next video. Take care. Bye bye.